You're listening to Life Check Yourself with life coach, transformational leader, and dating and relationship badass, Marni Batista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important life and love issues you want to know about. So if you're ready to life check yourself in your relationships, your career, and the areas of your life that matter most to you, and you're not afraid to be called out on your stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
Life Check Yourself with Etheridge. The best questions you can ask to get to know if he is your person. Ladies, welcome in. Oh my gosh, we're not doing video yet, but if you were, you would see this cute man. It's probably 7 a.m. Is it 7 a.m.? Are you in LA?
No. Luckily, I'm in New York City, so it's 10
cool.
a.m.
So you're at 10.
So.
Okay, cool. But we're still both drinking our coffee.
Yeah.
I was thinking, oh God, this poor guy is like working at 7 a.m. But no, I'm on the East Coast too. So woo woo.
I also have two kids on 5 and under, so there's no such thing as sleeping in anymore, anyways. So
I love it. Well, my kids are all grown, but I have an annoying cat that meows so fucking early. Oh my God, Simon. Okay, he's on Prozac now though. We're so it works. Now I'm getting a lot of comments about people. I put my cat on Prozac. It's a long story. Okay. Let me introduce you to Hunt Etheridge. He is an award-winning international dating and relationship expert. He's got over 15 years experience helping people become the best, most dateable versions of themselves, which I love. And while the focus of his coaching is making someone empirically more dateable, which we're going to talk about, all these lessons, ladies, as you know, translate easily into your personal and your professional life. We're going to talk a little bit about confidence building, leadership, image, style. We might even talk about conversation skills. And if you don't know about Hunt, he's fancy. He's been on over 100 different media outlets. He's been on CNN, the New York Times, Playboy, and GQ. I want to know about that. He also started 5 companies, and his most current venture is a matchmaking business academy. She's training and mentoring matchmakers and dating coaches. So that is amazing. So how did that happen? Were you like, did you get to go to like a Playboy party? Was it just like trying to teach men about dating? What was it?
Big old boring media outreach stuff. Do you know the website Help a Reporter Out?
Yes, Haro.
Haro's awesome. So,
yep.
I always, monitor that as well too. And Playboy has, a lot of advice columns and people writing in and things like that. And there are apparently, I've heard articles in it as well too. And so so I had met someone that was writing for them through Haro, and then they would just kind of check back in with me every once in a while when they needed a quote and just some thoughts on something and stuff like that too. So unfortunately, the most boring way to get your entry into Playboy, but it's still fun to see those little logos and to see like your name and that byline and stuff like that. It's fun.
Absolutely. Okay. So now I'm going to ask you a more personal question. I swear we're going to talk about dating in a minute. So I always wonder, and women ask when we have these man panels, which maybe someday I'll be a part of, we talk about, they always want to know about men and sex, and it comes up a lot about, like last time I think we even had, actually, no, this was amazing. Okay. So I was speaking at a college and they asked 2 questions about sex. One was, why do I not really excited about having sex with my boyfriend? How can I get my boyfriend, to be better in bed? And I think this is an amazing question because people have asked this of all ages over the last decade of me. So I'm going to reverse engineer this question. So how do most men learn to be good at sex?
That's really the problem, is that there's no, from dating to emotions, to relationship skills, to sex skills. All of us, but men more specifically, don't really have a lot of resources to go to. Men in general, we're getting better at being able to reach out and find things. But when I was growing up, we had Spike TV and Maxim magazine as our kind of guiding lights, and this is pre-internet times as well too. So trying to figure out what to do, you really didn't know what to do at all. And I've actually been seeing that kind of in my clientele as well too. Way back when it was, guys in their 40s at the end of the rope, but now people are realizing that there's something that they want to get better at. They're able to see that there's a way to do it, and so it's starting to skew younger and younger, which is great. But
so good.
Sex is so tied up with ego. And so it's hard sometimes to be comfortable enough with oneself that you can ask for advice and not receive it as criticism. Even the best of us, and when we word it the bestest of ways, say to my wife, like, oh, hey, honey, so when I do cook the fish, what is the wellness that you most prefer it at?
Right.
Because apparently this one didn't appeal as well to your taste buds.
Right.
But that if you're coming from a place of genuine wanting to please the person, and I think that's where it comes to is like in bed, a lot of times they're pleasers, they're, givers and takers.
Yeah. Right.
And it's not bad to be a taker. When you get two givers in bed together, sometimes it can get awkward because everyone's trying to like please the other. What do you want? What do you want? Do you need this? Do you like this? Is this okay? Do you want that?
Right.
So it's good when you have that rhythm sometimes. And, men also need to understand, the old classic that a man heats up like a light switch and women heat up like irons. And that takes some
Someone
time.
told me, wait, listen to this. And I told my husband, he was like 7 minutes. Someone I interviewed, I don't remember who it was. So if you're listening, I apologize. But they're like, it takes 7 minutes for a man to get turned on and like 45 minutes for a woman. And my husband was like, 7 minutes, light switch.
I was with my wife touring the fairy gardens of Ireland.
Aren't those amazing?
And, we're just going, she looks around and there's no one around. And she's like, hey, do you think, and she said before she had gotten the sentence out of her mouth and turned around to look at me, that I was ready. I was like, oh, yeah, okay. Yes, yep, okay, yep. Not a problem.
Go.
7
I
minutes.
love that for you, hon. My husband and I did it on a mountain in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. We were like, there's nobody around. Let's go. Light switch.
Yeah.
Light switch.
Yeah. It was over in 7 minutes. That's sort of the point of those kind of little
moments. I love that. Okay. So I just really think this is important things for ladies to hear is that even if a guy today or a guy 40 years ago, they're learning about sex from some probably one-dimensional, either a magazine or watching porn, right?
Yep.
Or they're with a lover
that knows everything,
right? Maybe if they're lucky, they have a lover who's an older woman or something who teaches them. But the bottom line is, I think it's really what I want to highlight is there's this sense of like, as women, like we want to have agency to ask for what we need, and that the right kind of guy is like, great. Like every woman has a different manual. Like just tell me like what you like. And we can go from there.
Right way,
right.
As women learn, men's egos are usually more fragile than women's are, which is surprising to them as they start to learn that. But if you say, I don't like that, do it this way, versus if you want me to rip your clothes off, let me show you how to get me so turned on that I lose my mind. Okay. Now I'm in.
Write that down, ladies. Hit that little 10-second rewind button. Write it down.
Phraseology.
It's all about the phraseology. Okay. So now let's talk about being empirically better at dating. Because when I'm talking to the clients that work with us, I'm like, look, like imagine it's an algorithm, right? Like it's how can we optimize your opportunity to meet the right person for you? Because I think one of the biggest things that, in this realm of life that I want to tell people is it's not random. It's not an accident. Like it's not like, remember a long time ago when like we thought like to get fit, you just did like an hour of cardio every day.
Yeah.
And that was wrong, right? And so I think some people think that dating is like running an hour of cardio every day. Like, I just have to like go online and I have to go out.
It boggles my mind, Marni. It blows my mind. If I wanted to learn German and you said to me, oh, don't worry, hun, it'll just happen. How absolutely inane that sounds. But that's the advice we give people in this dating realm, that it takes no work, that it'll just happen. And exactly like you said, one of the phrases I teach my clients is luck favors the prepared mind.
Ooh, wait, luck favors the prepared
mind.
And that is one of those things, Hunt, that applies to everything.
Yes. Yep.
Right? Like that's true for work. That's true for friendship. That's true for like getting ready for Thanksgiving and having to sit next to Aunt Ethel who asks you why you're still single. Okay. I love that. Okay. So carry on. So we got to be prepared. So how do we become empirically better at meeting?
Basically, I tell people like what I teach is like that 80-20 rule. 80% of what I teach is just human nature, how to be a better human. How to I say that dating is a mix of biology, psychology, sociology, and anthropology, because those are basically the 4 tenets of humanity. And to understand our own motivations, the motivations of the other person, society, etc., we got to delve into the little aspects of those as well too. So, when we talk about like biology, just getting the person to understand what the mechanisms and things are in the rhythms of, say, hetero-cis relationships and what, kind of, if you will, like Mars, Venus, getting a little bit that understanding, like kind of like the wants and needs. And then when you get to psychology, for instance, like learn communication styles. Instead of saying, like, even when you're arguing, you say, why didn't you do the dishes? It's when I ask you to do something, I feel sad when I feel I'm not valued, learning those things as well, too. So adding all of these little smaller skill sets together, and then like style and confidence building and how to tell stories, what kind of stories to tell, how to have the rhythm of your own speech patterns. I kind of like what I say is, someone asks you a question, it's 5 sentences and then a question back, 5 sentences and a question back. Make it easy. So there's a lob and a rhythm back and forth. I came up with that because I need to do it for myself with ADD. The nice thing about having a wife is sometimes you get the kick in the shins under the table, right? But I have to have my own safety valves too. So sometimes I'm like, okay, just a couple of sentences, lob it on. So when I put all of these little stats, little things all together, they raise the umbrella of dating, which is, confidence and how you feel about yourself, the way you're looking at the world. And to me, the essence of dating is to understand the value systems of your culture and trying to exemplify them. So as someone that's in New York City too, I deal with a lot of first or second generation immigrants. Yeah. And so sometimes, like, for instance, in some Asian countries, there's a phrase, the nail that stands out gets hammered. Okay. And so the value system is don't make waves, whereas then you come to New York City and it's I'm walking here. Right. It's a very different set of values. And so it's culture shock first, just on the personal level, the human level. And then once you kind of understand that, then you can figure out sort of how to date within that. So that's when I say like empirically more dateable. It's like all of these little extra skills that just make you generally just a better person, more likable, more interesting, things. Because I say the first mental switch is not that you... Okay,
wait. Let me ask you this, because it's so good. I told all the time, I'm like, you're going to have so much information. I'm going to interrupt you because I think this is really important. So when you've got all these different parts of yourself that are not optimized, it's that part you're not, and I really want people to hear this because it's not like you're broken or you need to like lose weight or you need to be more charming. What we're talking about is your truest self is like hidden, right? Because of the rule, like that, the rules of your culture, the rules that you learned about. Like, I mean, I had a client once whose mom said, look, you're just not pretty enough. So you better like study hard at school. Right. And that was a culture. And
that I'm still dealing with it. Like, men don't like smart girls. Slightly smart girl dumbs themselves down to, like.
Yeah, I know. And it's like, it's right. So these are the things when you look at like, all of these like levers that you can pull. If you sit there and you go like, well, just dating sucks in Manhattan, right? Or, men only want to date, skinny blondes 20 years younger than them. Like, I just want people to know that that's a story that may just be keeping you, right? From like looking at, well, how can I just be more of myself? And what is it? It's sociology, psychology, anthropology, and biology. Are those the four?
Yep.
Okay. I mean, pick one and work on it just as a thing of like trying to be like a better you. What's the one that you think people, have the easy, like once they learn like the one thing, what's like something you're like, and then they just switch it. What is that? What is it?
And that's usually when I give them my first lesson with someone as well too, because I want them to have something that they can immediately start working on. Okay. And that's basically, we all ask each other logical questions.
Okay.
What do you do? Where do you go to school? Do you have brothers or sisters? Do you like pets? We hope that it leads us to some conversation, but we're not setting the stage for chemistry to find us within those questions. And so if we look at Einstein's definition of insanity, we're asking logical questions, expecting an emotional result, which is...
Oh my God, wait, do you watch The Bachelor or any of those shows?
I haven't seen The Bachelor, but I've seen some of the other shows.
Okay, because we were just talking, there was an episode the other night and a woman asked, what are your core values? And the guy was like, I have a dog.
That's exactly
what you're talking about, right? You're like, so, she asked a values question. He's so trained in like, do you have pets? Then he was like, I have a dog. Okay, so we want to talk about values. Keep going. Okay.
So instead of asking all of these logical questions, every logical question can be asked emotionally. For instance, instead of saying, do you like your job? They could answer, no, I hate my job. And then now all of that emotion is hanging out in like annoying, pissed off areas.
Right.
So we want to make sure we keep all questions positive. So there's only a positive answer. So for instance, what do you like best about your job? Instead, like, if you want to know where they went to school, like, what was the funniest prank you saw in college? If you want to know if they've traveled, what's the best meal you've ever had or the most interesting meal you've ever had? And by asking these types of questions, not only does it access the positive parts of their brain, but it starts to associate you and all of these positive feelings. So
that's so smart.
Because all of us too, like I ask you the same as I ask my clients is like, Marni, have you had wonderful and amazing experiences happen to you in your life?
Of course.
Does anybody ask you about them?
Well, I'm living in an RV right now, traveling around the country. So people actually do, but only because of that. Right? Because I'm doing a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But typically people don't ask about people because they just make an assumption that they have nothing interesting.
Right. And they don't talk about. Some of my questions, I like to get a little touchy-feely. Like, what's one of your favorite childhood memories? Because then you're going to see how they respond to family. You're going to see if they're urban versus rural. You're going to see what religion they are. And then as you're starting to build this bond of happiness and trust and joy with each other. And the joy of good relationships, whether platonic or romantic, is to make each other feel good. We're around people that support us and like us and make us laugh. And the same thing we want to do to each other. Now, compliments are the low-hanging fruit. They're needed and they're necessary.
Okay.
But they can come across as insincere or generic or heavily innuendoed or whatever. But
I think a lot of women
feel good about themselves.
Yeah. So some women, when they get asked or they get a compliment, like you're so pretty or I like your dress, they don't even they don't believe it, right? Or they think there's some kind of subtle.
Because it just doesn't feel there's any work in it. For my men, when I teach this, is like you have to add a secondary clause onto that. That dress looks so pretty. It reminds me of the waters in Majorca. Now I want to talk to you. Now I know why you caught your attention. If you just say, that's a pretty dress, that's just observation. That's just logic. Again, there's nothing for me. Yes, it is. Thank you. There's nothing there. But like, I love your hair. I can tell that, you must have spent a lot of time working on it. Like, it looks, oh, well, okay. Thank
that's
you. Now
amazing.
I can understand. But basically, I tell my gentlemen, if you can say that compliment to the person on either side of them, then it's not personalized enough.
So wait, what do you mean by that? Like,
If
say
I
it
look
to
at
someone
you and I
else in the
say,
room.
I like your dress. I could say that to the person on your left. I could say that person on your right. It's too generic.
Got it.
If I could do that, then it's too generic. So it needs to be specific enough that that woman knows that that is for her and not for anyone else.
I love that. Okay, let me ask you this, because this is about conversation. And I don't know if you hear this too, but one of the biggest conundrums women have when they go on dates are that men don't ask about them. They do that thing that you were talking about where they're not real. I watched Love is Blind, not Love is Blind, Love on the Spectrum. And there was a dating coach for autistics, right? And what she did was she got a ball and she sat with the girl and she was like, every time you roll the ball back, you're going to ask me a question, right? So we're going to answer. It's going to go back and forth. Can you interrupt someone when they're on a roll? Like maybe he's nervous. Maybe he is a narcissist, but we don't know. What do you do, Hunt? What do you do?
Most of the time, like men for the most part want to be efficient and optimized. They don't want to torpedo themselves. They just don't realize that they're doing it.
Okay.
So, being redirected and as any conversationalist, learning to redirect people or learning how to, as a podcast host, learning how to stop people without making them feel they're being undervalued. These are part of those conversation skills too, to chop it up, to do things. And then as usually women have a higher EQ and dating IQ than men do, I tell them let you show them the lead, let me start asking you these emotional questions, hoping that you'll start mirroring me. You'll start to see, oh, okay, now I see how you would like this to go. Let me try and respond. And then if they do, you understand that they're trying to match you. And if they're missing it all, it also is going to give you information on whether this person is right for you or not at that time as well, too, because our time is valuable. And we do want to identify those that necessarily aren't right for us as well.
And so when you're in the middle of it, and you're having an awareness that this person isn't asking you a question, you're so good at the wordsmithing. So what would you say, to kind of interrupt or redirect? Is there any sort of flirty, playful phraseology around that from the Hunt treasure trove?
Grab onto something that they just said.
Okay.
Find a way to, that reminds me of a story. Basically.
That's so good. I love that.
And then if you can, if you like this person too, it's like, oh my God, that's so interesting. That reminds me of a story. Let me tell you about this. They just got touched and they see you being interested in their story and that they want to contribute. So for the most part, if the man hasn't been stuck in solitary isolation for the last 2.5 years, hopefully he's going to get that, and start to say, oh, okay, now let me hear this as well too. So just, a little bit of redirection, hopefully. And this doesn't mean that I know there's so much talk of emotional baggage and things that women have to carry and things. And I understand that too. And that's choices all of us have to make. Well, would you rather put in a little bit of more emotional work, emotional baggage in order to help the man come out of his shell? Or would you rather continue on as you were and nothing changes? Because I
think this is really important, Hunt. This is really literally, ladies, please. I had a client just over the weekend. She went out on a date. Well, first of all, I'm really proud of her because he literally had a alarm faux pas. And so he missed the first date. It was a coffee after a FaceTime. And she wanted to write him off. And he wrote the sweetest message. And I was like, you know what? He answers the messages, give him another chance. Anyway, so they had a date. It was great. They went on a second date. And he shared some things about, that she said some things that make him human. And I think that when we get so caught up in ruling people out all the time, there always is going to be something about someone, right? That is not perfect, especially if even if you are in your 20s or 30s, people are human. So elaborate on that. This thing about yes, people have baggage or issues or whatever it is. How do you know when it's too much or it's just part of their their humanity.
I think part of it is not that it's that we all are effed up in our own particular ways, which we are. It's that how we let others know about it. For instance, like the first date is not the time to check every disqualifier and marriage checklist and ask the deepest, darkest, hardest questions to see if this person is marriage material. People forget this. The point of a first date is simply to get a second date. And then the second date is to get a third date, and the third date is to get into relationship, and relationship is to become exclusive, and right. And so many times, women more so, but men as well too, are looking further down the line and not at what's happening at the moment, and making sure that this moment is fun, this moment is interesting. I am being my best self. Let's see where this goes. And at the same time, you can willingly, with your eyes open, walk into relationships knowing that they have a shelf life. Just because you know that you're not going to be marrying this person doesn't mean that you can't have a wonderful journey, learn about yourself, have some cool experiences. When I was single, I dated tatted up bisexual bartenders in New York City and had a wonderful time. Was it going to be the person I was necessarily going to settle down with? Probably not, but it's okay to understand what each person can bring to the table and what each relationship can bring to the table, and not to throw some away simply because you know that there's going to be a shelf life on that.
Yeah, it depends on what your goals are and where you are in the dating journey, right? Like there's a moment where, you want to, especially we have like so many ladies who just got out of long-term relationships or divorce or whatever it is. And you're like, I just need to get back to feeling like, like a wilding phase. And that's okay, right?
It is okay. It is. I mean, the end of a relationship is a death. It's the death of a relationship. It's the death of a possible future. So there's grief that you're going to be going with, and there's no wrong way to deal with grief. We all do it. Some people say the quickest way to get over someone is to get under someone. Some people,
I don't like that one. I think you need a pause in between.
Some people need, some people go straight from relationship to relationship. Those serial monogamists, and things like that too. And, we know kind of the anxious avoidant attachment styles and all sorts of interesting things like that as well too. So it's also, especially, you mentioned something specific there too, just getting out of relationships or divorce.
Yeah.
And there are basically 4 stages to any relationship, again, platonic or otherwise. And that's social, connection, comfort, and intimacy. And so often those of us that are in long-term relationships want to get back in. You want to get back into the comfort and intimacy. Right. That's the fun part. That's the sweatpants and watching Netflix and sharing your deepest thoughts and stuff like that too, because that's what you just like a month ago or a year ago just had. So you want that again. But people forget that that other person may not have come from that same progression. And 2, you can't just jump over some steps. You do have to move through them again too. And that can create frustration. And I don't want to go do all of this over again. And it's not necessarily doing all of this over again. It's just reconnecting with the things that make you happy and becoming the type of person that attracts people to you again.
Wow, that's so deep. You're amazing. You're so smart. So my last question is, because I was talking about this and you have such a great insight to understanding men. I think that everyone is like frenetically busy, especially now, like we're like whatever post pandemic or whatever time of culture and society we're in. I think people have returned to being busy, which makes it very challenging if you're trying to build a connection with someone because people are busy. Do you have any guidelines around how do you determine if someone is too busy to where they're not looking to actually build a relationship, or this is just like a season where like they're working on a thing or they have something going on with a family member? Like, how do you know, like, when do you just go, nope, this person isn't looking for what I'm looking for, and kind of like hit the reject button versus having patience and continuing to just engage at the pace they're at?
Totally. That question, and how do I know I'm in a relationship? basically the two easiest questions to answer and it's been thousands of years and no one has come up with the right answer to these yet. The first thing I would say is that the Trojan War was fought over a woman, Helen of Troy. If a man wants a woman, he will literally start a war to get her. So when I hear some people say, well, he's a neurosurgeon, and so I don't hear from him from 2 days at a time, I'm like, I'm sorry, but I'd be texting you on the toilet, in between shifts if I cared about you. I would find the time. I would make it happen. I would change my reality to include you. No, that's not, that's not how everything is. And especially at the beginning stages as well, too. So what I would say is it's more about how you feel valued and respected by that person. Is that person keeping their word at least? Are you just chit-chatting? Yeah. And then if things fall off or they may fall back in again, that's one thing. But if they say, I'll call you or I'll text you or let's do something, and then that falls through, that's a little bit different because that's showing someone your core values a bit more as well, too. Like for me, I almost never give my word or promise because I was brought up in the 80s and word is bond. If you give it, that is it. That is it. So I do not give it often because unless I'm prepared to absolutely keep it at all times. And that's
an 80s thing? That's an 80s thing?
Oh, I would like, well, it's also a culture thing too, because for instance, I'm married to a Latina, and in the Latino culture, they'll say yes to anything and everything because they want to. That sounds great. Yeah, I'll totally be there. It sounds joyful. I want to support you. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm actually going to be there. Where I come from a culture of RSVPing,
Yeah, so, me too. I was like saying, I'm like, I don't know if it was in the 80s. Like if I say I'm going to call you or I'm going to text you, I will do it. So I'm very discerning with my promises also.
Exactly. And for me, one of the weird things is time too. If I say I'm going to be there at 8:00, that is my word. And I'll be there at 8:00. So when somebody tells me something, I'm going to be there at 8:00 and they're not there at 8:00. In my own head, they broke their word to me and I'm getting frustrated and I have to get over it because that's my own shit. But that's how I see it sometimes. Right. That's why I value being on time and being real. I think being reliable is more important than just about anything because that develops trust, and that develops character and that lets you know who that person is, Communication, open communication is basically the key to everything because everything is okay, especially in this day and age. Open, poly, non-binary, everything's cool, man, as long as everybody's on the same page. So
so go back and because I know the listeners are like, wait, what do I do with the guy? Because I cut you off. That was my bad. What do I do about the guy? Is like, so he's got his word. If he's not consistent and his word is not being upheld, then that's probably someone you don't want to invest in. But if someone is consistent, but they're not texting you on the toilet, it's the gray area. But so what do we do?
Also give some work because we all value more what we earn than what is given to us. Both sides. But both sides can also do some work on it. But you also want to make sure you're leaving space open so they will do work so you can understand to see if they value. For instance, hey, I know, you like music. I saw there's a music festival coming up this weekend. Why don't you find us some tickets to something cool? So the man knows already, oh, she's going to like this. It's something I know she wants. She's not going to be disappointed. The door's open. I know exactly what to do, but I'm going to still actually have to do some work. I have to go figure out who's going to be there. I got to figure out the type of stuff that's there. So, most of the time, a lot of the time, any man worth his salt has been rejected hundreds or thousands of times. And it does start to weigh on you sometimes and becomes tiring. And so sometimes we may just be frustrated with coming up with ideas or plans or this is or that's because we haven't been taught, we're making, unbeknownst to ourselves, the wrong choices. And we're not, and I don't want to do this anymore. And when you as a woman can let the man know what you do like and give him some work to do, it makes it so much easier for him Okay, good. Okay. Now I can take the anxiety off, because on a date, what's the man mostly worried about? Whether the woman's having fun. And so if the woman can help him choose something that she likes, it's going to make it easier for her. It's going to make it easier for him. So throwing out little things like that, just to see, like, hey, I thought of a funny joke. What's yours? Just see if they kind of, something that's easy to lob back, but it's not, hey. Plus, as a guy, one of my best guy friends in my whole life, I haven't talked to in 8 months. That doesn't
It's not a big deal, right?
Our communication styles are very, very different. And I know, especially in the advice columns, I see a lot of times that the women saying, like, oh my God, he never texts me back. And I want to talk to him during the day. And it's like, oh my God, anytime I get on a text chain or text list, I'm like off, because my phone starts just get off. Don't want to have anything to do with it. It has nothing to do with how I feel about you. It's how I feel about the communication styles. And so that's, again, just back to communication. But come back to make sure that you feel valued.
Is it an excuse, or is it just a moment? So they're looking for other signs that will show this person's interest and character in between those dates or in between those moments.
Yeah.
Well, you're amazing. Isn't your website Hunt for I have to tell everyone to
yes.
Hunt for advice. You don't have to hunt for advice. You could just come listen to Hunt here. Or you can go to his amazing website, huntforadvice.com or matchmakingacademy.com. All that's in the show notes. What I want everyone to really hear about this is two things to me that are just first of all, everything is adjustable. All these things are things you can learn and adjust. And number two is, extend goodwill and credit when credit is earned. Lean in and allow the person the opportunity to show you who they are for the positive. And if they're not, then they're not your person, and move the fuck on. Ladies, whatever you do, share this with a friend, discuss, and life check yourself. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Hey, thanks for tuning into today's show. So if being in an intimate relationship in which you feel 100% seen, heard, and accepted by a high caliber man is a priority for you right now, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit for working with me and my team at Dating with Dignity, here's what I want you to do. Just head over to DWD VIP, that's D as in dating, W, D as in dating, VIP.com, and book a call to speak with my team. We'll get on the phone with you for about 60 minutes, and you'll get crystal clear on what's stopping you from finding true love right now. We'll also take a look at what you want to create, what you want your whole life to look like when you're able to finally be fully expressed as a woman in a healthy relationship with an incredible guy. And if we can help you get from where you are right now to where you want to be, we will show you the fastest path possible that makes sense for you to do that. We help smart, successful women all over the world solve this one missing piece in their life so they can finally have it all. So to see if we can help you do the same thing, head over to DWDVIP.com. I'm Marni Batista, and let's talk soon.